and do that. Okay, so you can see that I'm in my Kali Linux machine. So like I told us, we are going to introduce us to one special tool in addition to what we have done before. Like I told us, we have introduced us to the information gathering tools, which is the reconnaissance tools. We have also introduced us to scanning tools, which is Nmap and Nexus. So today we are looking at gaining access tools. Please, like I told us from the beginning, I'm not going to be using these tools to carry out these activities, but I'll introduce us to them. You can do your own play around them. Maybe at the end of the whole session, we'll now do an exhibition or a kind of exhibition, because most times when we tell you we want to teach you hacking, what people expect is exhibitions, not actually the knowledge of how to go about hacking, right? So maybe we can do that actually, but for now, I want us to gain the knowledge of what it entails. So I'm here on my Kali machine, and I told us I want to introduce us to a tool. So I'll launch my terminal interface and then wait for it to come up. But while I'm doing that, just notice that if I come here, just like I told us before now, there are several tools that can be used for whatever you want, right? On Kali, there are several tools. For instance, for information gathering, you can see all of the tools that are available. You can see the Nmap, you can see the net discovery, you can see the Maltego. These are all tools that you can use for information gathering. According to, um, the Linux, Kali Linux, I think both the scanning tools and the information gathering tools are grouped into information gathering. So you can see them there, both the scanning tools, because most of all these tools that are here are actually for scanning. So they look at scanning as information gathering also. So you can see for vulnerability assessment, just like I mentioned, Nmap, and also Nexus. Nexus is a paid tool, so definitely you won't find it here, right? But all of these tools, both Nikto and others, they are all for vulnerability analysis, web application analysis. You can see Bob Suit, you can see WP Scan, and all other tools. So if you click on this, you can see other tools, DRO Buster and Directory Buster, just like what we use Good Buster to achieve in our last practicals. I told us you can use a DRO Buster, that's Directory Buster, to also achieve that. So if you click on this, you will see many more tools that you can use for web application analysis, right? So you can still go ahead and then play around them, right? So there's database assessment tools, SQL Map, SQLite, browsers, there's password attack tools, you can see Medusa, Workdays, Hashcat, and others, right? Just like what we have been explaining all this while. So there are several tools you can use to achieve this, this task, right? So you can see wireless attack, those of you that want to attack wireless network and all those things, reverse engineering, you can see exploitation tools, right? So in exploitation tools, just like I told us, you can use what we call the Metasploit Framework, which is what I have been talking about, that it is actually a database, right? There's also the social engineering toolkit, which is another very important toolkit that most times hackers use to send you phishing information. For instance, you can see that there will be information that on WhatsApp that join this group to gain this money and all of those things. So most of those times, the tool that is used to create all of those phishing links is the social engineering toolkit, right? You can still click on it so understand how you go about. So to be very sincere with you, the social engineering toolkit is a very powerful kit that you can use for both phishing. Those of us that receive phishing emails and all those things. And the hacker will just sit on the system and be seeing whatever you are typing or doing on your machine, right? So that is what they use this to achieve. But like I told us, what we are looking at today is the Metasploit Framework, right? So you can still come to exploitation and pick the Metasploit Framework, or you just type on your terminal MSF Framework. Okay. Shamsuddin, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, sir. Please, I have a question, sir. I don't know, can we have another alternative application that we can use instead of the Nessus?
Another application.
I'm just thinking maybe with the catalog of this that I'm seeing on the Kali Linux, I was thinking.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if you are hearing me because your line seems to be breaking. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Shamsuddin, I think your line is breaking. So, like I told us, I gave us two tools actually, and there are two important tools. Nmap is FOC, free of charge for you. Nexus is a paid tool, right? But like I told us, if I'm carrying out an official job, like maybe a job that I'm being paid for to carry out a vulnerability assessment, I'll definitely want to subscribe to Nexus so that I can use the tool. Nexus is just about 320 something. Is it about $3,000 or so? So definitely I'll fathom that into my bills that I'm giving the organization to use that. But like I told you, Nmap and Nexus, they are two good tools you can use. That is because I have actually been using them over time, right? So Nmap is a free and open source tool, just like what we can see here, right? That you can use, yes. Nexus is paid for, but Nmap is free. So you can use Nmap to achieve what you want to achieve. And also that depends on your skill, because definitely, you'll not just do anything and give to an organization and say, there's a vulnerability here and here and here, and the organization will not ask questions. They want to know, how did you come about? How did you discover that there's a vulnerability here? And in everything you are doing as maybe a penetration tester, there should be, how do we call that in English language, like a second authentication, in the sense that if somebody comes and do the same thing that you did in that place, will the result be true, right? So you should be able to establish that using the tools that you used, right? There's also another tool, the OpenVAS vulnerability scanner, right? OpenVAS stands for Open Vulnerability Assessment Scanner. That's OpenVAS. So it's also open source. It's another tool that you can actually deploy to scan over a network. Now, let me give you people a rundown of the network I scanned, or the job I did with the Jais Bank, right? So what happened was that, okay, there was maybe some group of persons stole some huge amount of money, and we were called. So when we were called to carry out that investigation, definitely the investigation was more or less a digital forensic investigation, because we had to assess all of the logs and know what's happened in the system for the period of time given, right? But even after that, we need to also conduct a VAPT to know if somebody from outside was able to penetrate into the organization's system, right? So, and for you to do that, you need to, first of all, check, where does the organization have vulnerabilities, right? And for you to examine that, you need to use tools like Nmap, to scan for the open doors, the open ports. Those of us that joined the class the other day, we scan for open ports in the system. So you need to scan to know which gateway, which road, which gates is actually open on this network. You establish that and you take that down. And you now scan all of the applications that are running there, because that is what Nexus does. Nexus help you scan all of the applications that are running on that particular network, right? To know where there are loopholes. That is why we call them vulnerability scanners, right? So you can scan also with Nexus and then establish the fact that, okay, this place is open, this place is open. You can also use OpenVAS to carry out the same type of scan that Nexus is carrying out. That is just for second authentication, for you to know that, okay, in this thing that Nexus can, there's no, is it false negative?
False positive.
Do you understand? No, at
Yes.
times, at times we have false positive, true positive, false negative, and true
Of course.
negative. You understand? So at times we need to establish that whatever any tool is scanning is not false negative. Right?
Okay.
Or true negative,
Okay.
rather, not false negative. Because false negative is that there is no harm and the tool did not pick anything. But true negative is that there is no harm or there is a harm and the tool is picking nothing. Is that okay? So you need to do a second verification by running another type of tool, which you can use the OpenVAS to do that. So OpenVAS and Nexus, you can use those two side by side and Nmap for your scanning to understand whether your network is vulnerable or not, right? Then after that, if you discover that there's vulnerability in the network, because that is what we actually did, the network, the loopholes we discovered, we actually tried to, hack through them, right? So we hacked through some of them. And then in our report, we're able to present that, okay, this loophole that you have here, I can actually hack through them. But if I hack through them, am I able to commit the crime that the person that committed the crime that you're looking for, am I able to commit that crime, that same crime? Those are things you put into perspective. You understand? So this is how you carry out maybe a VAPT or a digital forensic investigation, or myself as a digital forensic investigator, these are the ways I go about doing these things, right? You need to bring up both the penetration testing skill set and the investigator skill set together to be able to carry out stuff like this, right? So, but you need to also know that in your toolbox, what type of tools should we have or should I have? You need to know that. And that is why I'm exposing us to all of these type of tools. Any questions so far?
I'm convinced I'm okay, sir, for now.
Okay. So like I told us about the MSF console. So you can still go ahead when you open your terminal, you can just type MSF console and press enter, or you go to, let me type that MSF console. So I'll now press enter. If you can type MSF console and press enter, or you go to exploitation, you see, we have exploitation tools. So in exploitation tools, you can see the Metasploit Framework. MSF stands for M for meta, S for exploit, and F for framework. So MSF console, right? So you can still click on it and it gives you the MSF console. So you can see from what we did, it is trying to start up the database of our MSF console. And just like I told us, told us that MSF console is like a group of database, just like what one of my friends is telling me today, that in his company they try to gather all the available resources, put them in a device, and try to encourage organizations to purchase them. For instance, if maybe the duties and all the functions that are being carried out by the Ministry of Digital Economy and Communications, for instance, you can just put all of their activity in, a kind of a small wireless access point, whereby the moment that access point is in that location, everybody can access it and do whatever they are doing, right? So that is how the MSF console is. It's actually a database that contains all of these exploits, the codes that people have used to carry out an exploitation. Whether it's a website, whether it's a network, whatever it is. So when people succeed in carrying out this exploitation, what the MSF console does is to copy out the code or the aspect in which they're using carry out that combination, and then updates the database with that information. So that is the database we are talking about, the MSF console database. So you can see from what I ran, it created a database MSF and created databases MSF.s, creating configuration file. This, so it created all the necessary to stop the requirement that we want, right? And if you look down here, it's telling you the number of information that the MSF console has. And it says we have 2,297 exploits, 1,201 auxiliaries, that's helpers, 409 post whatever, 968 payloads, 45 encoders, 11 nulls, and 9 evasions, right? So what they are just showing us here is the number of these equipments that can stand the MSF console that you can also find in the US, right? So you can see we're just typing MSF console or clicking on MSF console. You will notice that it has taken me into the actual our basic console. So far, there are also commands you can use when you are in the MSF console. So let me go ahead and then clean my screen. But before I do that, let me see how I can, increase what we are having here. So let me clear my screen. And if you notice that my screen is not as the normal screen we normally use, because we are in the MSF console. So if you're in the MSF console, one of the first things you do, like I told us, is you have to find the help of the commands, or to go ahead and study out the commands that are in the MSF consoles. So, but for instance, I can just do this to help us, give us guide on what their commands are like. So just the question mark sign, which is like the help sign, will expose you to a lot of things about the MSF console. You can see all of the information that you need to know about MSF console. For instance, this question mark that I put here, you can see it here. It means help menu. Banner displays also Metasploit banner. CD change the directory, whatever, and so on and so forth, right? So at the end, I can also decide to exit the console that will take me back to the major console, communicate with a host, debug, history, help, with, and also every other thing that we can actually see here, right? So we can go ahead and look at the other various options of the Metasploit framework. So far so good. Let me clear my screen still and then look at other things, right? So first of all, one of the things I would like us to look at is the searching of exploits. So most times we might have, conducted a vulnerability assessment scan and gotten maybe an IP address that you were asking, what do I do with it? So those type of information, you can actually, come to your MSF console and then type them in and search for what they are. I don't know if you are still hearing what I'm saying. Are you still with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So if you carry out a scan and you discover a vulnerability, you just come here and search for it. So for instance, if I carry out a scan using my Nmap and I get a vulnerability of MSRPC, I can come here and say, okay, search, for instance, MSRPC. So you can see it automatically fetch information. I was just searching about MSRPC, right? Because this is actually service that's Microsoft Remote PC, right? So this is a service that maybe a particular port in my system can be running, right? So what I'll just do is to search for it. And when I search for it, now you can see from this, it is telling me that, okay, there's an exploit, you know, start on that. And this is the exploit on that, right? Disclosure date, the person that discovered it, this is the date he disclosed that the rank is good, check no, and this. Now, most times, most of the vulnerabilities that are listed here, or exploit rather that are listed here, they are exploit that the organization cannot do without. Because for the fact that you will have to host your website, it means that the port 80 must be open, or the port 443 must be open on your system. And if you are to sublet that work to maybe somebody lesser than you, definitely there are some ports that needs to be open from your end and from that person's end, right? And that is why we always talk about this, these things that, it's not just about your IP address and the ports you are sitting on. So far, so good. So these are how you search for, exploits using Metasploit. So we can decide to use this exploit that we search now and just use the word use zero. Now, use zero is what you're saying is use this exploit that is number zero. Because zero is actually a number in in mathematics. So or in programming rather. And you can see that when we do that, zero payload is configured before to Windows Metasploit, whatever. So that exploit that we actually ordered for, since there is no payload configured, he is saying that, okay, exploit for this. So he has actually told us that, okay, this is the location that you are. You are in the exploit location, right? So I can still use word like options to see what he has. So, and these are the options that he has. So in these options, if I'm supposed to maybe use my target system that I've scanned, it therefore means that something like the early host, which is the local host, will change to the IP address that I have done my enumeration, that's my scanning and all whatnot on. So that will change to the early host. So I'll put that and then I'll press run. So run the entire organization, the entire program or exploit rather. So that is how these things work. I wouldn't know, is there any question you want to ask? Please go ahead and ask them. Okay, no question so far. So this is one of the things I've explained to us, Metasploit Framework. So it's actually a very nice framework. I want you to go and do more findings on how this framework works. And so that in our next class, what we'll be looking at is discussions on the exploitation tools we will learn. This is just one. I'm going to introduce us to several platforms where there are so many exploitation tools that you can use to carry out whatever activity that you want to carry out, like hacking and phishing and all those things where you have to trace or you have to send a message to somebody claiming to be who you are not. And the moment that person clicks on that link, automatically there's nothing the person does that you don't have access to. So we'll be looking at all of these things in our subsequent class. I would like us to stop this class here today. That is because I actually wouldn't have loved to have this class today, but For the fact that we have missed a lot of our classes, that is why I'm doing this today. So I don't know, I'll give room for maybe 1 or 2 questions if you have any, so that you can get to ask those questions. But in summary, I have introduced us to the Metasploit Framework, and I've told us that this is a framework that everybody uses to carry out and hack, right? Whether physically in the communication system or otherwise, right? So these are the techniques that I use to carry out a hack so far. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session. Except there's anybody that has a question, please, you can go ahead and ask that question. Otherwise, we'll close the class here for today. Any questions so far?
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
My own is an appeal. If there is like a textbook or maybe something that can help, just like you made mention of terminologies in what we are doing. If there's a textbook you can recommend for us, maybe it will get a long way helping us, like some of us that are beginners.
Okay, that is not a problem. Like I told us from the beginning of the class that we are going to make provision of materials for us that we'll be using. The only thing is, if those materials are going to be available, definitely you have to pay a tip for them. We can actually arrange for that to be available, right? So it's going to be available, hopefully. But I told us this course is just a crash course. We are going to start the real cybersecurity course, where will take us from a low level to a higher level in cybersecurity. So we have to start from the basics. And I think by then the material should be ready for us to go around and look at it. Right? So
Okay, sir.
yeah, that will be available.
Okay, sir. Thank you
Any
very
other
much, sir.
question? Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question? So in the absence of no question, we'll end the class here for today. Please, I noticed that the group chat has been dormant. We don't engage ourselves in the group chat. By now, I believe that everybody should be at least engaging one another in the group chat so that we can get this knowledge, because definitely there are people that know some things that you don't know. So engage them and let's get the group chat busy so that people can actually help us gain intellectual knowledge in whatever we need. Right. So that will be my take home for tonight. I want to wish us a wonderful night rest till Sunday. So thank
Yeah.
you and bye-bye everyone.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, good night.
Yes, good night, sir.